And Hamilton County wasn't the only area hit by a tornado. Another touchdown in Buffalo County near Gibbon. Meteorologist Travis Kleneski and John Walsh are in the studio with a look at the path of the storm.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was heartbreaking to see all the damage out there in Hamilton County, but the good thing is there were no injuries. But we knew it was going to be a night ripe for storms like that, and certainly our fears turned out late last night.
Yeah, the cell developed during our 6 o'clock show last night in Buffalo County, traveled east through a couple of counties there, and of course, narrowly missing Grand Island. Luckily, no tornado touchdowns there. Exactly. And then again, narrowly missing Aurora as well. So it really stayed in rural areas for the most part. We're going to take a look here. We're going to take a look here across the area. Here's Grand Island. Here's Aurora. First sighting of a tornado touchdown in Hamilton County was just to the southeast of Phillips, about 1 mile west of the Giltner Spur, just south of Highway 34 there. And this was an EF0 at this point, packing winds anywhere between 65 and 85 miles per hour, and eventually strengthened up to an EF1 a couple of miles later, so the winds were a little bit stronger at this point. Didn't hit any structures at this point. We were seeing some power line damage, trees damaged, a few pivots overturned as well. Then when the storm really got going, it started out about 8 miles west of Aurora. It really got going near the P&G plant, or just to the south of that on the other side of the highway there. This is where it strengthened to an EF2, packing winds of around 125 miles per hour. This storm actually just narrowly missed the P&G production plant. The damage done there to the roof was actually caused by inflow winds, or winds, straight line winds being sucked into the tornado from the north. So there was not an actual tornado strike on the P&G plant, but unfortunately that house was damaged very considerably just to the south of the highway there. Again, this tornado at this point was about 1,000 yards wide, or about a quarter mile wide at this point. Traveled for about another quarter mile before starting to weaken about 2 miles west of Aurora, and luckily it didn't narrowly miss the town of Aurora. And it lasted about 18 minutes, traveling 6 miles from G Road in Hamilton County to M Road. Of course, we have some video of the damage that we saw across the area, the tornado as it made its way to the east through the county of Hamilton County there. This is looking west on Highway 34 there, as this tornado is just starting to get going. We were looking at a fairly strong tornado at that point, and then the huge debris cloud, again, about a quarter mile wide, and this was putting down EF2 damage at this point before weakening just before the city of Aurora. Now, John, of course, you have some of the information on the tornado that hit eastern Buffalo County, John.
Yeah, and that was earlier in the evening. Shortly after the 6 o'clock news, we started to see a line of thunderstorms firing up in northern Buffalo County. Here we are. There's Gibbon. There's Wood River. And to the north is Pleasanton, and that's where the storms began to fire and just sat over Pleasanton for, a good half hour to 40 minutes. Then it split. One part moved to the northeast, the other went to the east, and that's when we knew that there was some circulation in there and there could be trouble, and that certainly did occur shortly before 7 o'clock. Roughly 9 miles north, 2 miles west of Gibbon is where we had a tornado touchdown, and that happened right near Meade Road and Pole Line Road, right about in this area here. 2 farms were damaged. The storm tracked about 1.5 miles over toward Navajo Road and Pole Line, roughly. It was an EF1. The blue area here indicates wind speeds of 86 to 110 miles an hour. And as I mentioned, near Meade Line Road, Pole Line Road, there was some farms damaged there. And then also over here around Navajo Road, another farm got hit as well. Quonset hut damage, large doors caved in, grain bins caved in as well. And the thinking is, over in this area, there may have been multiple vortexes or multiple tornadoes perhaps spinning around the parent cell. There was another tornado that extended farther to the south, and that was a weaker one around EF0 with winds less than 100 miles an hour. Let's take a look at some of the footage around Gibbon area during that time. There was some funnel cloud activity out there. Here's a look at the funnel. And these storms touched down just briefly, would lift up again, and then touch down again only to lift back up. They weren't very long tracking storms, fortunately, but it doesn't take much when you have a brief touchdown and somebody or something is underneath of it. But some great shots of the funnel cloud out there in Buffalo County. Unfortunately, again, as we repeat and stress, no injuries, and that's the beautiful thing, the miraculous thing about last night.
Yeah, thank goodness, again, mainly rural areas, and of course, as we said before, missed Grand Island and Aurora, so definitely lucky on that side of things.
And that last gust of wind that you heard as the Aurora tornado lifted up, that was just a collective sigh of everybody out in Aurora.
In fact,
a big exhale.
In fact, a tornado emergency called for Aurora just before the tornado dissipated, so yeah.
That was amazing. Anyway, that's what we have in terms of last night. We'll focus on what lies ahead tonight in just a few minutes. We'll send it back to the desk and Corinne.
Thanks, guys, for that depiction of the path of the storm. Well, as Travis and John mentioned, it wasn't just Hamilton County hit by the storms. A tornado touched down in Gibbon. News 5's Anthony Pura is in the studio with more on the damage caused by that storm.
Corinne, when the storm hit, it hit one couple's farm really hard. They think one of the tornadoes may have dipped down right in their front yard. The destruction only lasted a minute. The cleanup will linger on. The Kremostas' house survived. They were inside when it happened.
There was a kind of a roaring sound, and we looked out the window and saw a lot of debris going through the yard, and like a huge, huge whirlwind. And it was white and immediately I told my husband, I said, I think we better go to the basement.
Outside, the tornado circled their home, leaving them clear signs it was there. This tree was completely uprooted, barely missing their house. A grain bin sunk in by strong winds. The doors on their Quonset blown away, and their shop collapsed, its roof blown to the ground.
I had no idea that it was as serious as it was.
It was so serious, the tornado may have dipped down right in their front yard. Storm chaser James Dill says it's very possible.
Because we were up in that area, 1400 right there along the golf course.
About 2 miles ahead of where he was, he shot this video.
There were like 3 or 4 in that location.
But it only took one tornado to leave the Kremostas with this damage. It was the first time they were hit, and they pray it's the last.
I surely hope tonight we don't get any more storms, and I hope it doesn't follow the same path if it does.
Right now, they're looking towards a path of repair and recovery. Now, there were also reports of flagpoles being bent to the ground, grain bins tipped over, and trees falling on roofs. But the people I've talked to say the Kremostas got the worst of the tornado damage in Gibbon. Now we toss it back to James live in Aurora.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. And we do want to update you on the power situation right now. This is a live look as power crews work to fix down poles and power lines from the tornado. And this was a very familiar scene for us as we drove to Aurora from Hastings today. The good news, power is back on for most people here in Hamilton County after it was out for a brief time last night. The tornado knocked down power poles and power lines here near Aurora and Giltner. Most of the damage stretched a 2-mile area along Highway 34. People in Giltner and Phillips were without power for about 2 hours. A handful of homes and businesses also lost electricity in Aurora. Crews spent much of today fixing the damage.
There are a few that we have a little bit more extensive damages to repair. Cook Industries is one of those places. They'll probably not see power until tomorrow night. But we do have our men concentrated in the area trying to get that done as quickly as we can.
The Southern Public Power District says power is back on for most everyone else. We're told it's too early to tell just how much the damage will cost. Also, Highway 34, that's the road right behind me, that is back open tonight after being closed for a short time due to that tornado. The Nebraska State Patrol and authorities with Hamilton County shut the road down around 9 o'clock last night. We do have video from News 5 when we were on the scene. A few miles of the highway leading into Aurora from the west was closed. Authorities say it was shut down due to those downed power lines and other debris. The State Patrol had the highway reopened around 8 this morning. The highway itself, though, isn't damaged. And we're going to keep walking around here on the property of the Usick family. When that tornado hit, it also knocked a Burlington Northern train off the track right in this area. It was actually near Murphy. You can see behind me, some of those cars had been moved off the track, and they are now on the ground. It was just after 9 again when that tornado hit the train. Railroad officials say it was stopped at the time due to the storm. 2 crew members were on board. They took cover in the nose of the locomotive. In all, I'm told 16 cars were derailed. They were carrying everything from steel and aluminum to cotton seeds. The railroad says it had the cars picked up and moved off the track by about 6 o'clock this morning, and the crew wasn't injured. And again, that is important to note. It's really hard to believe. It is good news, though, that no injuries in all of this devastation, especially in the Usick family. When you take a look at this house, it's just incredible that they made it to safety, and luckily they did. They did so, again, as Katie mentioned earlier, with just seconds to spare. Corinne?